back in 2004, I bought myself this book. And for those who know will understand that I want to apologise, in fact, profusely apologise to my younger self. It was another 4 years before I picked up coding again, and it actually took momentum. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this book, although I'm not sure Dreamweaver helped. And that's what this video is about. It's all the advice I would give myself if I was learning to code now. There is so much information out there for the introduction to coding that it can often seem overwhelming, and I don't recommend relying on the first page of Google. It was really overwhelming when I started, and in some ways it is still overwhelming sometimes today. If you follow these tips and tricks, I'm hoping your process of learning will become quicker, easier, more effective, and above all, more enjoyable. And that's what it's all about, because if you can nail coding, even the basics of it, the opportunities you have are endless, and the world is your lobster. Let me explain. Before we begin, I will say that I'm primarily a front-end developer, which means I build websites and web applications. I also design user interfaces, and I've been doing this role for about 12 years now. So all the advice that's coming out will be skewed towards web development, but I'm going over the basics. I'm not going to go over any code itself. That's not what this video is about. It's the wrapper that goes around learning to code. So even if you're going into game development, cryptography, data science, or even building native apps, the process of getting into that mindset will be useful throughout this video. You need to be able to have the ability to sit in front of a computer for hours and an interest in learning. The two have got to come naturally, or you've really got to work at it. And if that's something that you're struggling with initially, or it's not something you're naturally able to do, it would be good to practice yourself doing that, to be able to stay in front of a computer, to relax and to stay concentrated and have a natural quest for learning and taking on board new information. The thing is, you will lose motivation. We all do, I still do today. So having that ability to sit in front of a computer and stay focused for as long as possible will help get past those lack of motivation points. And it's really important that you do get past this, because it can be a very frustrating process, especially initially when you learn to code and you're not sure what everything does or how it works or understand why. It takes years to become proficient, but it only takes a few months to, be okay, get to a point where you can put stuff together and know the basics. This one I think is the most important, and that is why. Focus on what you want to achieve, not necessarily what you want to learn. Maybe you're looking to get a new job, change career, or upgrade to a specific type of job. Maybe you've got an idea for a product or an app or a service. Maybe you want to be able to edit your own e-commerce site. The point is when you focus on the end goal, it doesn't really matter what you learn along the way, as long as you're getting to that end point, and it keeps you laser focused. It really keeps your eyes on the prize. And now the fun stuff. So, actually learning to code part. First thing I would say is don't get too bogged down with which language to learn. You will end up veering towards one of the languages. Ideally it would be two, but definitely focusing on one. That will happen naturally over time. If you're coding because you've got an end goal and an end focus, sometimes what you want to do dictates which language you want to use. But if you're starting out and you're trying out, I would probably say the best one to start with is JavaScript, modern JavaScript, or ES6 as it's also known. The reason why is because the barrier to entry is really low. You can code on an editor and it'll just come straight up on your browser. You don't need to set up any environment, and it's highly accessible as well. Another one which a lot of people learn and is a popular language is Python. The syntax from learning Python, once you get to know that, it does make other sort of high-level languages similar. It makes them easy to read. So you can do Java, you can do Objective-C, PHP, Ruby. All these things are not too dissimilar once you've got the basics down. Don't spend too much time listening on the web about which one's better, which one isn't. I promise you, the user who uses your product or the end goal doesn't care how it's coded. Then does it spark joy? Does it make their life easier? That is what it's all about, making people's lives easier. When you're at the early stages of learning to code, right at the beginning, I would recommend going over the fundamentals of each part of the programming process. Every code, whichever language you want to do, has for loops, while loops, switch statements, functions, classes, CRUD, create, read, update, delete. When you get data into a database, save it, and get it back out again. Each individual parts of those are quite simplistic on their own. I would recommend, say, if you're learning in the evenings, to say spend one evening just on for loops. Learn everything about it, just keep repeating it. It doesn't take that long to learn, but just fully understand it. Then do switch statements, then get something into a database, then add some more data, then take the data out, then manipulate some of the data. Keep it focused for each part and try and keep doing that for as much as possible until you fully understand each section. And as you're learning one, you'll realize what the next thing is to pick up. And for this section, the last thing I would say is to learn your code editor. If you're not sure which one to use, the standard one across the board and the one that you can see here is Microsoft Visual Studio Code. Microsoft has done a fantastic job on this. It's free. It's simple, it's quick, it's easy to download, and you can just add plugins for whatever specific language you're working on or for whatever task you need. If you find this video useful, I really appreciate you hitting the like button. You don't have to smash it. Don't smash it. We don't want to break anything. Just a gentle tap. Absolutely fine. It makes all the difference for me. And do consider subscribing as well. I have more videos like this coming down the line, including how to get your first job as a developer. I've been in that process myself and I've hired brand new developers. So I'm going to break that down for you. And also, once you get up to basic coding levels and basic web levels, I can show you how you can make quite a good side income with other little projects you can do on the side. So do subscribe. And if you've got any information that you want to know or you want to add anything, please leave a comment below. I do really appreciate it. So now you've got the basics understood. This is where you can focus on the long form stuff. And this is where it gets really interesting. I would probably move away from YouTube by this point in terms of learning and go for long form courses. And this is where you probably want to subscribe to a particular teacher. When I mean subscribe, I mean follow, stalk, listen, learn. Try and just pick a few people that you like their teaching style and teach what you need, and stick with them. This is where you need to pick out a good tutor. Now, find someone that does a subscription service to their own platform that does regular updates every few weeks or so, and they start from the basics, have a look, and right up to more quite advanced stuff. And the idea is you work your way through them as you go along. I've got code and products that I use today, even my product Vibecast, and some of the code in there has been from what I've learned from these tutorials. They've been absolutely fantastic, and this is where you want to move forward and focus on that now. Another option is coding boot camps. These are coding centers where you learn full-time on site. Remember when you can leave your house and go to places and see other people? These are good. If you've got the time and the budget, I would highly consider this. This is where these courses are anywhere between 3 weeks to 12 weeks, ranging anywhere from about £5,000 to about £15,000, I guess £1,000 a week. And you don't need to have in fact, just very basics. You don't need to have any coding skills whatsoever. You can go in there completely fresh, but it does help if you can at least get to this point in the video and go with some knowledge of what to do. And after 4 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever, you come out ready to get into the workplace. You've worked with other people, and this is important, even though coding is a highly remote job that you can do yourself, and you definitely don't need to be in a team of people to get it done. We're very good at working virtually with other people. But initially, it does help having other people around you in the same situation and someone highly qualified who knows what they're doing, literally a question away. It does make all the difference. And it just builds up your confidence a little bit as well. Again, I haven't been through this process. If it was around now and I was learning now, I probably would do it. All I know is I've hired junior developers at various companies that I've freelanced for, worked at, and they've been smashing. They've been really, really, really good. Like, I don't think we've had a bad one at all. They are a bit expensive, but if you've got the investment, I think it's worth it. But all I know is the people that I've worked with straight out of these coding camps have been fantastic. So it's definitely an option if you live in an area you can go to it when you're allowed to go back outside again and you've got the budget to do so. So you're working your way through long form videos and you're starting to get a bit confident. Now's the time where you probably want to start looking at building something tangible that you can use, or, you know, more importantly, someone else can use. So I've got a list of things here, which just makes it a little bit easier so I can remember, of things that you don't have to do all of this. You don't have to do any of it. And when I mention them, don't be alarmed. You just do them at the very basic level, but learning each of these has a reason. First one is publish a website. I don't mean design, develop an amazing website that anyone sees. Just publish a website that no one will see. The reason why, it will give you basic HTML and CSS knowledge and some JavaScript if you want to use that as well. No matter what you do in life, having the very basic web knowledge is not going to be harmful to you. You've also got to learn the process of getting it from your computer to a server, which that's how every app runs. And on top of that, if you want to, how to register a domain name and connect it so it connects to the server that your website's sitting on. These are fundamental stuff. If you never become a web developer and you go off and do data science or something, this will still get you far in life. The next one is make a game. Again, I'm not talking like Cyberpunk 2077, although you could probably do a better job than they did initially. Snake or Pong or something like this. The reason for this one, it's the type of logic that a game uses. You can do this in JavaScript or you can do it in most other languages. But this one teaches you the logic that you need to do, if this, then that. These are the scores. This is how you tally up things. And it's more mathematics at this point. And again, if you become a web developer, having a little bit of game knowledge is going to be a good thing. The to-do list. This is classic. This is classic tutorial stuff. The to-do list. This is where you learn web application stuff or even native apps. The reason why to-do list is good is because you have to, it's not built as a website, it's not a game, it's a functional utility, an application that people will use. You have to add something into a database, an item, to-do item, display it, tick it off so it's updating the database, delete it, perhaps change the order. And the great thing about a to-do list is you can go as far down that rabbit hole as you want. So you might just build a basic to-do list, but you might then want to have a login system. So a person logs in and they only see their to-do list. Then you might want to put that to-do list on the server and then put a domain name on it. So then you've now built a to-do list, people can log in and now it's live, and then technically anybody could use it. And then this is where you start getting people you don't know use your products. It's a really good thing to do. No one really gets that far with to-do lists. It's always just a handy one to start learning. The second one is to use an API. Not going to go into details what API is. You can figure that out for yourself. Whether you're doing data science or web development or anything else, using APIs and creating APIs is pretty much standard across the board. So it's a good one to learn. I like frameworks. Don't be afraid of frameworks. So there's two arguments here, and both are correct. You've got the purists, which is I want to learn the raw code and I just want to understand it completely. Fine, that's great. That didn't work for me because I'm a bit of an all-rounder. I sort of struggled with the mathematics side of it and the granular level of coding. And what ended up happening from my point of view, not from anyone else, is I got frustrated because I wasn't moving forward building things. What a framework does, for instance, PHP is a language and Laravel is a framework that sits over PHP. So it just takes PHP and builds scaffolds up certain things that you're going to use. For instance, if you're building an application, you're always going to have a login. You're always going to need to call the database. You're always going to need routing, where if you go on a particular route, it shows a particular page. I'm of the personal opinion is just get it working. You can code for the sake of coding, or you can code to get something built, to make someone's life easier, to make your life easier, to make some money, whatever you want to do. By this point, you're getting quite proficient in learning to code. These are some other tips around it that will help that process. The first one is taking breaks. Obviously, I said you need to be able to sit in front of your computer for hours and days and weeks on end, and you will need to. But you still need to take breaks. You do need to give yourself a break from it. You do need to let your brain relax, do nothing, and let it process what's going on. One tip, I can't remember where I found it, I think it was on a tweet, someone told me, and this really worked for me, is when you're doing a course or a long form course, say a particular course is broken down into 10 videos, instead of waiting to have a break after, say, the 5th video or when the video finishes, break right in the middle. And even more so if it's going well. So you might take a break because you're getting frustrated and it's just like, oh, I need a break, I'm going to walk away. If you can, when it's going really well and you're halfway through, stop. I know it sounds counterproductive, but what happens is when you walk somewhere else and don't do anything else, just try and do nothing, your brain is in a feedback loop. And because you haven't closed it, because you just stopped halfway through, your brain keeps processing and keeps processing. And that's a really good way to learn. And it's a way to retain information naturally. And especially at night, if you can stop something, I mean, it might not help you get to sleep, but if you can stop something halfway through, don't wrap it up clean. I mean, obviously when you are, going to work for people, do that. But when you're in the early learning stages, just stop. Try and go to bed. And what's happening is your subconscious is whirring through and it's making all these little calculations and it's processing in the background. And that's probably one of the best bit of advice that I've ever had. And I'm glad I did that. Another one, and I hate that this is the case, I really do, but gym and exercise. I think to myself, do I want to go to a gym class? Do I want to leave my computer, spend half an hour going to the gym, do a class for an hour, spend half an hour coming back? So it's 2 hours out of my day taken out. And I think that's 2 hours of work. But, say you work 8 hours or 10 hours, let's say 8 hours, and 2 of those hours are at the gym, not every day, say every other day, the rest of the 6 hours will be more productive than the 8 hours in total. And I wish this wasn't the case. I prefer to utilize my time properly, and I'm not a massive fan of the gym, but I do go because it makes me a better coder. I don't mean gym doing weights, I mean gym exercising, doing HIIT classes, getting your brain worked up, getting your blood worked up. Your mileage might be different, but for me, it makes a huge difference on my productivity and learning. Don't buy books on a specific programming language, like how to learn JavaScript or how to learn PHP. I did. They're sort of outdated now. Languages sort of update every year or so. Frameworks can update even quicker. But the bigger picture books, things like structural stuff and coding principles, they're great. Like I've got 2 here. These are pretty old books now, Clean Code and Database Design for Mere Mortals. I'm not saying they're exciting reading, they're not at all, and probably will help you go to sleep, but they're still actually quite relevant today. So be careful about the sort of books that you buy. I do recommend it, but keep away from specific programming. Another handy tip is to set yourself up with a server. Now, you want to set yourself up with a local server. By this point, you probably know what type of language you're enjoying and you're familiar with, and you're able to sort of run these programs locally on your computer. Different languages run on different types of servers. And then you want to be able to get people to use it, because getting people to use your product is the best way to learn. I promise you, the best way. Don't sit there coding, keeping it to yourself, get it out there and get people using it. You'll learn so much faster. So what you want to do is understand a server, because you're going to be using it quite a lot. Even when you're just going to work somewhere, perhaps you just need to throw something online quickly for other people to see it. Understanding a particular server is really useful, and the sooner you can do that, not too early, get yourself comfortable, but the sooner you can do that, the better. And I would avoid those really cheap servers like GoDaddy or One-on-One Internet, the ones that you get a free hosting when you buy a domain name. But also, I would also keep away from, the more complex ones at the early stage, like Amazon Web Services or AWS. I do use it. It's a fantastic service, but not when you're first learning. You want to keep in the middle, something like DigitalOcean or Heroku, where it's got a nice interface. You can do everything by clicking. You don't need to learn command line tools just to get anything done. And you're able to get files into a server. It's running smoothly. It scales if you need it to. You can add in extra parts. You can learn how servers work. And then once you're happy with that, you can always go back to, you can always learn AWS or more complex ones, Azure or Google servers after that. But even still, I still keep a DigitalOcean account server running. It's just so easy just to throw something up there. Perhaps I'm working for a client. I need to show them something online. Learning that and sticking with it, you will find useful forever. Make the most of open source. This is a wealth of information and a great way to put yourself out there too. So perhaps you want to, so again, from a web experience. So if I need to get a particular drop down, which has got a search functionality in it, and it's quite complex and it looks really pretty and it's really smooth and it animates nicely, it's really difficult to build, even for something like, what seems to be quite simple. So you go and have a look at someone else's framework, which is open source, perhaps a front end framework like Bootstrap or something, or a more advanced one, and drill down into the code where how they do theirs, and you'll be able to lift the code and then use it to yours and then customize it to what you need. And this is why open source is so good. Everybody learns from everybody on it, and you want to get used to fairly quickly, sooner rather than later, navigating yourself around GitHub and other open source repositories, and getting used to lifting code or understanding how code is. And it's a good way to see how other people code things, because you'll realize soon enough that there's a million different ways to do the same thing. And that's kind of the problem sometimes. It can be a bit confusing. You don't always know what questions to ask because there's different ways of doing it, and the way you're asking it, is it correct? But also, once you do understand open source and you understand Git repositories, all these little projects that you've been working on so far, even though nobody's using them and they don't look pretty and they're not fully coded and they don't understand, don't worry. Stick them up on the repository and keep it open. Don't stick it behind, a password or a login system. Keep it fully open. And as you're building these different things, like I said earlier, a game, a to-do list, all these sort of things, they might be terrible, they didn't work properly. But the fact is, you've kept them all openly public. Now, once you start getting proficient and you start looking for work, you stick a link to your GitHub, let's say, and I promise you, employers don't care whether it works or not. They just want to see how you structure your code. No one will download it, fire it up and see if it works. They just want to see how you structure your code. And that's good. And you can get feedback from that, and it will just help you get a job as well. So absolutely utilize open source as much as possible. I've alluded to this quite a few times during the video already, but getting something out there is much more beneficial than tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. I mean, you can code for the sake of coding, and that might be a thing for you, or you can get something else out there and make someone's life a little bit easier. The sooner you can start getting people using your products or building things for what you intended them to be, the sooner you'll start really learning. And that's where good developers start being formed. A classic thing that you might be able to do, or something that I used to do, for instance, is practice on people that don't really care too much about what a website should do or what it should do for them. For instance, I had a friend who's a plumber, and he's sort of a friend of a friend who's a plumber when I first started out, and he needed a website, and older guy, didn't really care about it. He knew the web existed, he knew what it meant and understood that it's a thing, and he needs to be on there, but doesn't really care what his website looks like. They're really good. I think I charged him a couple of £100 and put together a website for him, and it was beneficial. I learned a lot, and next thing you know, he wanted some updates, and it started climbing up on Google. Or if you live in a rural area and you've got a tradesman, perhaps call up a couple of tradesmen and ask them if you can make them a website. That's quite good, because the reason why I say rural area is because if someone in some village is going to search for a tradesman or a plumber or a plasterer or a carpenter or something, it's probably their website that's going to come up first, so you can actually make some difference there. Remember the days when we were allowed to socialise? Well, when those days come back, I highly recommend doing so. Go to meetup.com and type in whatever you're learning in whatever city or town you're living in, and just go to whatever meetup is there. There's some of them, obviously there's some of them going online at the moment. There's not too many of them, and try to avoid the online ones, especially in the early stages. Meet people. And if you live somewhere and there isn't a meetup for the specific framework, language, technology that you're working on at the moment, create one. Also, Twitter. Now, hear me out. Development on Twitter is actually pretty good. Unlike many of the other social networks, especially Instagram, even YouTube and a lot of the others, they focus on the end result. Here's something polished and nice. Here's this, here's that. We're launched, it's done. Yeah, it only took us a weekend or whatever. On Twitter, all the developers, they're often tweeting about the process that they're going through, the stages that they're doing, asking questions, contributing to open source. I have to say, for anything else, I don't use Twitter at all, but for development, it's really good. And it's gotten me a lot of work as well. Just be ruthless about who you follow. Follow the teachers that have been teaching you. Follow other people that contribute the same things. Find other developers that are doing successful in the languages that you want to learn. There are quite vocal ones. They're all super friendly. A lot more friendly these days anyway. But yeah, Twitter. If you don't use Twitter and you're a developer, I would consider it. It's a good option. And if you are on Twitter, you can follow me too. And finally, I'll let you into a secret. Do you know what the best code is? I can tell you now. I'll save you a lot of time. I'll tell you now what the best code is. The best code is less code. The fewer lines of code you can write, the better the code. That will take some time. Don't worry about that. If you take a full page to get something working, it works. Honestly, getting something working is the best. But getting something working with fewer lines of code, less code, that's even better. It's easier to maintain, it's easier to run, it gives you confidence as a programmer, and it seems counterproductive because you can either write a big long list of pages over 4 screens, but if you can get it done in half the page, and this is where a lot of refactoring comes in, this is where a lot of experience comes in, this is a good sign. If you can look at your code, take a break from it, come back and refactor it in a way where you can reduce the amount of characters and lines to do it, that's where you start getting good. And this is a good point to be proud of. And this is a good point where you should start feeling confident because you're realizing you're reducing your workload. So the best code is less code. If you found this video useful and you've learned something, please do give me a like and consider subscribing. I've got many more videos like this coming along, including how to get a job as a web developer and also how to make money on the side once you start getting proficient at coding. I do appreciate it if you could leave a comment as well. Let me know any questions that you've got or anything that you want answered. This all helps with the YouTube algorithm too. And once you start getting proficient in coding, you'll understand how algorithms work and you'll appreciate why I'm asking this. Thank you for making it this far. I really do enjoy making these videos. My name's Jack and I'll catch you on the next one.